I have a couple of guys I wanted to name, but I want to see off the top of your head, most underrated, maybe a guy that just doesn't get enough credit.
Go ahead.
I had a couple of guys I wrote down. I have just the duo in Sacramento with De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis were the first people that came to my mind.
They're not underrated,
They just don't get the credit. These guys are, I mean...
Listen, man, they get a top 3-4 seed in the West.
Neither of those guys made the All-Star game.
I know, but if they're like a top 4 or 5 seed in the West going in All-Star break, one of them makes the game. If you're like on the 9-10 fringe, you're competing with voting and the guys like LeBron and AD and like these stars, like you're not going to win. So for them to get in, they got to really be above. Remember that year they had where they were top in the they had an All-Star that year.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't call them underrated. Everyone knows who
so when I
De'Aaron
was
Fox
looking up
is.
who potentially...
I want guys who do production that no one knows.
You want like those guys. Because I was thinking before, if you would have asked who like an underrated player was, you would have said like OG or Lou Dort. Now these guys aren't underrated. When they sign these $100 million, $200 million deals, I can't call them underrated anymore, right?
Lou Dort's on a $100 million deal.
No, he signed 90.
When?
Lou Dort?
Holy shit. That guy's a $90 million basketball player.
Well, I can't call these guys underrated anymore. OG just signed for 200. I'm like, remember he used to be like a trendy, underrated guy, right? OG. He's like, not anymore.
Yeah.
What about Jalen Williams from the Thunder?
I don't think he's underrated.
You clearly have a different definition of underrated. Why don't you
Underrated
just tell me what you think is...
Underrated are guys who put in production each night and people like just don't talk about him at all. Jalen Williams is like one of the most exciting young players. They call him, he's a part of the big three in OKC. It's Chet, or it's Shea, Chet, Jalen. It's not underrated.
So who's underrated?
I don't know. Like Caleb Martin would have been an underrated player a couple years ago. You know,
until the explosion in the playoffs. Then he almost became overrated a little bit, right?
Then it became like, okay, maybe he's not as good as we thought he was.
Like then when he had 10 points, everyone was mad. It's like, no, that's
who he is. Yeah. No, I want guys that like are putting in work each night that people are just like, that guy just doesn't really get any appreciation.
What about a guy like Brandon Ingram, who no one wants to give him the contract? I don't know what's going to happen. He didn't go to the Pelicans. They obviously had like a summer team workout. He didn't show up. He has one more year on his deal. He's 27 years old. Last year he averaged 21, 6, and 5. Shot 49% from the field.
Yeah, no, that's a great number.
This guy's in the prime of his life at 27. This is a situation where the way the Nuggets got...
You're underestimated. You're going at it from a different perspective.
Well, I just have a question because a lot of people think Brandon Ingram's probably overrated. I'm thinking, is Brandon Ingram a guy that's in a situation like how the Nuggets got Aaron Gordon and they're like, wait, how did the Nuggets just get this guy? Is the team going to get Brandon Ingram and get a 27-year-old guy that could average just 21, 6, and 5 in the prime of his life? Like, is that going to happen? I know his style of play is a lot different. Aaron Gordon compliments a guy like Jokic. It's really tough to Brandon Ingram's like DeRozan type. Like, it's going to be hard to match him up with a different team.
Yeah.
I don't even know what team he would fit in.
Yeah. Yeah, Brandon Ingram can help a lot of teams out, man. Who are we kidding?
Yeah.
Again, I know the league is very situational, as we've alluded to 10 times today on the pod, but he's a guy that if you give him enough touches, he's going to put that ball in the basket. There's a lot of teams that need scoring. All right. At the end of the day, how you win a game is putting the ball in the basket on the other team. And if you're really good at it, you got a place in the league, whether that's New Orleans or not. So, yeah, that's not a bad player to say, but like that guy was on the FIBA team the other day, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's not like an underrated basketball player. I'm talking about guys who aren't on USA and FIBA, Pausha. I'm not talking about guys signing $200 million contracts. I'm talking about guys who are putting in production each night, and like people don't talk about them ever. You know what I'm saying? Like Malik Monk was a guy before this past year or two. Now he's getting all this attention of like 6 man. That was the guy when he was for the Lakers, bro. Like put in numbers, and the Lakers like gave him away. Everybody's like, "What? No one talked about it."
That's a good one. Okay,
what are we doing here?
Going with this?
Yeah, bro. Like Mo Wagner comes off the bench every game for the Magic. High energy every game. Always has high energy. Gives him good production. No one talks about him. Those are like underrated players for me, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's an underrated player. Kelly Oubre keeps getting vet minimums, but like averages like double digits every year.
Like before the contract, you would have said Jaden McDaniels was a really underrated player.
Yes, before he got $140 million. You're out of that conversation. As soon as you get paid $140 million, I don't want to hear underrated anymore. You're actually
starting to get a feel for what you think.
Yes, bro.
What you like for the
underrated.
I
want guys who like are out here putting in work and people don't pay them or talk about them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I was naming all-stars.
Bro, huh?
I was naming all-stars and you were
They're
like,
like Brandon Ingram. I'm like, OG.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell is this?
These are just guys I get what you're
These
saying.
are guys we constantly talk about. We talked about Brandon Ingram for the USA or the FIBA stuff. We talked about with the Pelicans. Like, these are names that are going to be brought up. We talk about
the same thing about the most improved player, where there's guys like Tyrese Maxey that get it, that go from good to great, and then you're like, well, I want Kobe White to get it. He's the guy that was putting in the work that went from no one knows what he is to now he's good.
Well, Kobe White should have won most improved player.
Yeah.
Fucking Tyrese Maxey winning. Did he win?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. He was really good the year before. It's
Yeah.
the dumbest thing I've ever seen. That's not a slight to Tyrese Maxey. It's actually a compliment. You were already very good.
Yeah.
You did not go from like not good to good. Brother, you were averaging the dub the year before. I'm glad he went from that to 25. He improved it by, I get it, it's a big jump, but he
Right.
was already really good, man. In fact, we all were okay with James Harden leaving Philly because this guy was already so good. That's the reason why I feel like, yeah, we got James out, more touches for Maxey, because Maxey was already good.
Yeah.
How the fuck does that guy win most improved? Kobe White was a guy that people didn't know he's going to be in the league a couple years from now. Now he's like a fucking spearhead of their like rebuild. He's like the head of it. That's a turnaround. All right. He went from like not starting and not playing a lot to averaging like a dub hitting game winner step back through.
Now he's
Like,
untouchable.
yeah, now he's like, well, we're not, everyone's movable but Kobe. Like that is like a hell of a, that's what I call most improved. But yes, those are the type of names when we talk about underrated players. I want guys who are actually underrated, not someone who has 2 million followers on Instagram. All right. He's not getting as much love as the guy who has 5 million. I don't care. That doesn't sway me one bit. I want guys that are
Who's a player that you've played with in your career where you were like, man, this guy does a lot more than people really realize, or he gets enough attention or credit for?
Well, up until they won, Aaron Gordon was that guy. And then they won, and now everyone like appreciates him for what he was. But up until then, I was like, this dude does like a lot of little stuff, man. People like don't really. There's also guys I think are like vastly overrated. And I think they've been a part of like winning teams, and they've done well. They've had good roles on those teams, but I don't think they're as good as people think they are. I'm not going to say those names. I'm going to wait for them to have poor performances this year in their new situations.
And then you're going to talk about them on your podcast.
And then I'll talk about them. Yeah. And then I'll bring it up like, this guy's not playing as well. That's how I'll do it. I'm not going to put it in the air like I want him to fail.
Yeah.
This guy's overrated and he's not as good as people. I'm not that guy. I'm going to let back and let you write your own history. And then I'm just going to be there to talk about it. That's my job. You know? So, overrated, underrated. Let's look for the guys that need the love.